chapter 2, take 2000. I'm telling you, I'm dying over here. Okay. Are you keeping warm? Good, me too. Here are some questions we are going to consider as we explore the Ricardian model. Reasons why countries trade. What goods are the countries exporting? And are they just going to export goods they are really, really good at producing? Or would they export other goods they are not that good at producing? Then how should countries compete with other major exporters like China, where wages are super low? That's the wind, by the way. So why do countries trade? If you remember from principles, when you studied the production possibilities frontier, and we drew here good Y, good X, and PPF. We said the area outside of the PPF, right? In that area, production was not attainable. You remember this? Now, when countries trade, with trade, they are able to get to production points out here where by themselves those points would not have been attainable. But with a trading partner, they could hit those trading points. So what exactly does this PPF mean then? This green line right here, what is it? Well, this PPF signifies the level of production that a country's current resources, physical capital, labor, land, entrepreneurial ability, and technology can help it reach. The level of production a country can reach using its own technology and factors of production. So to get to points that are outside the PPF, well, you could use trade. So this could be one of the reasons why countries, instead of producing goods domestically, would purchase them from a trading partner. Let's go through some reasons why countries trade goods with each other. Hopefully you are looking at the slides, right? And not listening to this like it's a podcast, right? Right? Everybody's looking at the slides? Okay. Countries trade with each other because of differences in technology. Let's go back to this. I told you the green line, the PPF. What is the PPF? This is the PPF. In case you joined the class late, that green line over there is the PPF. What is PPF? Production Possibilities Frontier. Oops. That's the PPF, right? A given country at that PPF. What that means is that green line signifies the level of technology and factors of production the country has to produce just at that line. and not farther. So to get to a point that is not attainable through trade, you will have to partner with another country that probably has better technology than your country. See that? Yeah. Good. So differences in technology will be one of the reasons why countries trade goods with each other. Differences in amount of resources. Some countries have tons and tons of labor. Other countries have a lot of land. So then they can partner with other countries that don't have a lot of labor and so that they can exchange goods or trade goods. Proximity of countries to each other. So if the country is next door, the chances that trade is happening will be really high, unless of course there's conflict between those two countries that are just next door to each other. There are also differences in costs of offshoring. We can see this with the iPhone. You see? So part of the good is produced in different countries, all shipped to an assembling location before shipped to the destination from where it's distributed to customers. So this Ricardian model that we are going to be looking at is focusing on tech differences across countries as a reason to trade. Now, when countries have different technology, we can use that to explain the trade pattern, but what we are actually going to look at is the comparative advantage. We saw that last class. We're going to calculate opportunity cost, determine which country has comparative advantage, and that country will be the one exporting that good in which the opportunity cost is lower. That will help us explain trade patterns. Now, more on this much later. I just went through all of this. Okay. Absolute advantage, what is that? We saw that last time. It could be that country A is just better at producing the good than country B. Meaning what? Given an hour in country A, workers can produce, say, 10 items, say 10 bottles, right? But in country B, given the same time, workers can produce only 5. So in that case, country A has absolute advantage in producing bottles. I lost it there for a bit, not remembering what good I was talking about. But you get the point. Can we use absolute advantage as a good explanation for trade patterns? Absolutely not. We can't. So one country can have absolute advantage in producing all the goods, but when you calculate opportunity cost, you'll find out that one country cannot have comparative advantage in all the goods. Do you see that? Yeah. So I just went through all these 3 bullet points under comparative advantage. The Ricardian model is stemming from David Ricardo. Now, at the time, there was a school of thought, the mercantilists. So the school of thought is mercantilism. Mercantilism favored high tariffs. Why? Well, to discourage imports. Why? Well, because imports will drain the national treasury. When you import goods, you have to pay for them, right? But when you export goods, others pay you. So it's better to be paid than paying others for their goods. But Ricardo, with his Ricardian model, was trying to show that, hey, with free trade, countries can benefit. Meaning, with free trade, countries can reach points of production that used to be unattainable if they are only focusing on themselves or trading within their own country. So with free trade and no tariffs, countries can do better. We will look at tariffs much later in the semester, towards the end, and you'll see that there are costs to tariffs. Ricardo's model has influenced countries, or many countries in the world, as many try to form or forge free trade agreements to push that free trade idea, that with free trade and less tariffs, all the countries involved in that free trade can do better or can benefit. So the assumptions under the Ricardian model, by the way, the Ricardian model is being studied under perfect competition. So say on an exam, I ask you to list the assumptions of the Ricardian model, and you list the assumptions of perfect competition. Sure, all of those will just be 1 point, right? If you don't list no tariffs, if you don't list assume free trade, if you don't list all these other things, then you see how it's going to be difficult to give you all the points. So anyway, the Ricardian model will show that international trade benefits countries. Free international trade benefits countries who export goods in which they have comparative advantage, or who export goods in which the opportunity cost is lower. To set it up, we are going to think of two countries, home country and foreign country. We'll think of two goods, wheat and cloth. In that same spirit, we are thinking of two industries, wheat industry and cloth industry. Now, we will assume that out of all the factors of production or the resources that each country has available to them, we are going to only assume labor to produce goods. We will ignore land and we will ignore capital. Labor is the only resource that is being used to produce goods. So how many items of the good can labor produce? Here we use the marginal product of labor to see that. We see that the extra output that is obtained from 1 unit or 1 more unit of labor is 4, is the same. We are going to assume constant returns to labor. So if you have 1 worker, that 1 worker produces 4 bushels of wheat in home. If you have 2 workers, then that additional worker also produces 4 bushels of wheat. If you have that additional, the third also produces 4, like constant returns to labor. This idea of constant returns to labor impacts what the PPF will look like. This means the PPF will be linear. Can we get a non-linear PPF later on? Yes. When we change the assumption from constant returns to diminishing returns, then our PPF will look different. But we'll get there in chapter 3. Alright, so in home, one worker can produce 4 bushels of wheat, or they can produce 2 yards of cloth. So the marginal products of labor for wheat is 4 in home. Marginal products for labor in cloth is 2 in home. With that, can we draw the PPF? Well, not yet. We will need information on how many workers there are in home. So if home has, let me change the color here so it can stand out a bit. If home has 25 workers, right, marginal products of wheat, marginal products of labor in wheat, let me see, it's 4, and marginal products of labor in cloth, that's 2. Okay, so to find the total quantity of cloth that will be produced and the total quantity of wheat, so I'm going to write here Q wheat will be equal to 4 times the 25 workers. So that is 100, and Q cloth, that will be 2 times 25 workers, that's 50. With this information, we can draw the PPF. See? Okay. So 50 yards down here, because that's the cloth, and 100 bushels. Okay, so that's how they calculated that. With cloth on the y-axis in yards and wheat on the x-axis in bushels, right, we can draw the PPF. We have 50 here. We just calculated that, the quantity of cloth. We have 100, the quantity of bushels of wheat. And we join those 2 points to get this PPF here. We worked on this last class. Now, in my previous semester, we had bicycles. This time we have bottles, right? So I'm just going to correct that. And instead of snowboards, we have sneakers. Bicycles, bottles, sneakers. Okay, so we saw this last time. The opportunity cost of producing bottles will be sneakers lost over bottles gained. Opportunity cost of producing sneakers will be bottles lost over sneakers gained. We worked through that in the review, and hopefully you still remember. Now, we saw that whichever country had the lower opportunity cost in producing a good would have comparative advantage in that good, and should specialize in producing the good, and should export the good. This is a very important bit of information. You should not forget that, because it will make working through the second classwork quite easy. And then how do we price the goods? Well, a good is priced between the opportunity cost of producing the good for the 2 countries. So with this, can we answer some questions on the second classwork? Yeah, we can. We can. So I'm going to pause things here and then we'll come back. I'm just going to pick that classwork out. I guess it's this one. Yes. Okay. Now, with the classwork, I repeated question 1 here. We already did that in the review. You don't have to redo it, right? So what we want to work on is question 2. I will start question 2 and I'll have you work part of question 3. It's not hard. You'll see how I'll do question 2 and then you can work on question 3. So let's take a quick look at this here. I'm just going to find where I stopped. Okay. So here we have 25 workers in home and we're trying to figure out if all the workers in home, I'm on A, if all the workers in home were employed in bottle production, how many bottles would the workers produce in total? Right, well, that would be 25 workers in home times the marginal product of labor for bottles in home. Let me write that. So that would be 25 for part A, 25 times marginal product of labor in bottles, right, in home. In home. If you notice, this is linear ppf in home. All right, so let's go up to the data and pick that out. So home bottles, that's 2. Okay, so that's 25 times 2. The answer is 50 bottles. Now in B, right, we are here now. In B, this is A. In B, for sneakers, well, 25 workers times marginal product of labor, sneakers, well, that will be equal to 25 times, let's go up here and find home, sneakers, 6 times 6. And that is 150. If my math is wrong, you should tell me later on. Okay. All right. In part C, we are going to draw this PPF. Draw the PPF for home in a well-labeled graph. Bottles on the y-axis, sneakers on the x-axis. All right. So we're just going to see. I'm going to squeeze it here and make it big so you can see it. Sneakers, bottles, and then we draw the PPF. So, well, sneakers will be 150 and bottles will be 50. So if this is 150, I'm trying to gauge this a little better. This is 150, then it looks like 50 will be somewhere here, right? And then I join this with a linear line and that's my PPF. Okay, so that's C. D, calculates the slope of the PPF. Slope is exactly what you're thinking. Change in y-axis, right? So D, this is a little too thick, but I'm thinking that's as thin as it can get. All right. Slope is changing the thing on the y-axis over changing the thing on the x-axis. On the y-axis, I have bottles. On the x-axis, I have sneakers. So that will be 50 divided by 150. And my answer there will be negative 1 over 3, right? The zeros cross out, the 5 goes there 3 times, and so that's negative 1 over 3. Negative y because this PPF is sloping down. Okay, I just did D. Now, the second part, well, I didn't finish D. The second part of D says, explain which opportunity cost this slope represents. Hint, opportunity cost of bottles or opportunity cost of sneakers. You guessed it, opportunity cost of sneakers. So, D part 1 and D part 2, opportunity cost of sneakers. Right. Now E says a straight line PPF has some implications for home, and it's asking you to explain what that means. Well, a straight line PPF, constant slope, right? The slope is the same at every point on that linear line. And what that means is we have assumed constant returns to labor, and so that's why we have that. Again, a straight line PPF indicates constant slope, constant marginal product of labor, constant returns to labor. It also means that we are basically ignoring the role and the constraints of the other factors of production, or of all the factors of production, really. Remember earlier on when we looked at the slides, we said we were ignoring physical capital and we are ignoring land, and only thinking of labor in the sense that each unit of labor does the same thing as the first one. Yeah. So that's E for you. Okay. With F, I'll do that in class. We'll continue that in class for 2F. Now, what I want you to do before class on Monday, I want you to see how I answered question 2. I want you to go ahead and do 3A, right? 3B, 3C, 3D, and 3E. And I'll do F in class with you. But you do, right? You do 3A, 3B, 3C, 3D, and 3E on your own. On your own before class on Monday. Now, what is Monday's date? Let me quickly check that. Monday is the 28th. On Monday, January 28th. Okay. I will stop here and I will see you on Monday. Bye-bye.